Today's headline is how a tenderfoot rode Sturgis. The subheadline says, he came from the home of suckers and greenhorns, and even the foreman of the cowpunchers couldn't make him out. It says, away along in 1881, the cowboys who were looking after some 8,000 head of cattle, the property of the firm of Cody and North near the center of North Platte, a tenderfoot, as a greenhand is called, made his appearance upon the scene. It was no uncommon thing for visitors to the west to stop off in North Platte, as that place is the end of a division of the system of the Union Pacific Railroad. Some to enjoy the kind hospitality of Mr. and Mrs. Colonel Cody and their charming daughters, Arta and Ora. Others to see Borden and Keefe's herd of domesticated buffalo or the horse and cattle ranches in the vicinity. On the occasion of the visit of this dudish individual, the foreman, Captain North, was not in the sweetest of humors, as the 7-Up outfit had picked up some of the men he and his right-hand man, Buck Taylor, had figured on getting, and we would have to start short-handed in a day or so up the Platte River via Hinman's Ranch, through the Badlands, by the head of the Birdwood and Willow Island, to the aforesaid starting point. This was a disappointment quite sufficient to justify Captain in going about like a bear with a sore head. Well, as I said before, Mr. Dude with a crissy stiff hat, a boiled shirt with immense stand-up collar, came to the camp, and of course no special notice was taken of him any more than of the dozens of others, except that some of the boys passed a few remarks to each other upon his get-up. Approaching the cook, who was monkeying about the fire, he says, "Mister, which of you might be called the boss?" The chef showed him loot, as we called Captain North, and says he, "I heard over there at the saloon last night you wanted a man. I came over to get the job." Captain looked at the crissy stiff silk tie and his pretty clothes, etc., and then he says quite slowly, "And what kind of a job might you be looking for?" "Why, punching cows, of course," said the stranger. "Yes," says Mr. North, "and what do you know about cow punching? Where might you have punched cows?" "Oh, down in Missouri," says he, smiling most pleasant. Now, as a matter of fact, there ain't no cow punching down in Missouri. That state is pretty much of a hayseed state and a regular nesting place for suckers, greenhorns, and tenderfeet. So when Mr. Christie said he came from Missouri, Captain looked at him and said, "And what outfit did you work for down there?" "Well, I worked for my pop. Pop had nigh on to 20 cows, and I had to drive them down to Spring River to water. Pop used to ride the Old Bay, and I used to ride Molly. Sometimes I used to ride Jim the mule. Oh, I've had quite a lot of riding, I could tell you. My ma said I could ride well." "That's so," said North. "Well, I guess I haven't got no job for you." "What?" says the dude, looking mightily surprised. "Perhaps you think I can't ride, not good enough?" "And that's no lie," said North, who was getting a bit tired of him. "Oh, but hold on," says the gentleman. "You haven't seen me ride. Give me a chance. I'm pretty hard up, and I want a job." "Look here," said North. "You ride that bald-faced buckskin Comanche bronco over there, and if he don't chuck you, I'll take you on, and what's more, I'll give you top wages." Now this same bronco was a regular outlaw and man-killer, and there wasn't a cowpuncher in the outfit of the year before who could stay with him if he took the notion. And one morning he actually did pitch Buck Taylor, now one of Cody's Wild West Rough Riders, headfirst into Dismal River. He also puzzled other bronco twisters who were no slouches either. He was a vicious, biting, striking, whistling, snorting terror, and as for bucking, he'd sooner buck than eat. We called him Sturgis, as Cody and North got him from the Sturgis range in 1880. It did seem rather mean, low down, to run the stranger up against a cyclone, but he was so precious green, why he just jumped at the chance. "All right," says he, "you'll give me top wages if I ride that horse?" "Yes," says North, laughing to himself, "and perhaps you wouldn't mind buying me an outfit too, as I'm broke," said the greenie. "I'll do that," says North. "I guess sticking plaster is pretty cheap," whispers he to us boys who were standing round taking it all in. "Here, George," says North, "you go and help Billy Newman catch Sturgis, saddle him, and bring him round here." They soon ran him in from the grass, roped him, threw him, blindfolded him, no easy matter, saddled and brought him round to the greenhorn. "What a funny saddle," says he. "Dear me, I don't think I can ride on that thing. Pop's saddle wasn't like that, besides I generally rode barebacked when I was at home. Won't some of you gents take it off?" So we took off the saddle. "Then," says he, "I ain't used to that kind of a bridle. Pop had one, though it wasn't that fancy kind, but I generally used a rope around Molly's neck or a halter. Please take off that bridle." So we took off the bridle, but it was no easy job, as old Sturgis was waiting around in fine style, kicking up and striking out and snorting all the while to beat the band or four of a kind. The Missouri hayseed's eyes began to bulge out some, and says he, "That seems to be a pretty ornery kind of a horse. I guess I may have a little trouble getting on him. Getting on seems to be the trouble with me." "Yes," says North, "that does seem to be the trouble, but some of the boys will give you a leg up if you like." "Oh no," says he, "my pop used to say that walking was good enough for me if I couldn't get on my horse. I guess I can have a try at him if one of you gentlemen will lend me a pair of spurs." So we gave him a pair of spurs, and he puts them on and slides up to old Sturgis while his boys were ready to fall down and die laughing, and the bronco was dancing around them with his ears laid back and a considerable amount of white in his eyes, when all of a sudden that crazy Tenderfoot rushes at him, grabs him by his mane, scrambles on his back, snatches the hackamore rope from the boys, and turns him loose. Sirree, talk about a circus. There we had it, and no mistake. There were clouds of dust, snortings, yellings, old Sturgis a bucking endways, sideways, and every which way, while that greenhorn from Missouri just dug spurs into his sides and lambasted him over the head with that there Christy stiff hat. Now North Platte Schoolhouse was close by in those days, and what does that blame galoot do but ride Kerr smash through the door and into the room, and the first thing we knowed, there was the kids just a-boiling out of the windows, and the schoolmarm just yelling blue murder. She being a pretty girl, we lost no time in going to her relief, but before we could get there, out comes Mr. Man, still lambasting away with his Christy stiff, while old Sturgis looked rather silly with a kid slate hitched to his off-hind foot and his mouth full of copybooks and such like things. Not satisfied with this, Sturgis jumps over a fence into the sheriff's garden, and in going through the clotheslines, he managed to get entangled in one of the sheriff's nightgowns, much to the amusement of Mr. and Mrs. Groner and the rest of us. But in spite of all his efforts, though he put in his very best licks, he was unable to pile that greenhorn. Probably the hat paralyzed him, for cow horses are not used to such trimmings. At any rate, after he had charged round for a good 20 minutes and fairly discouraged old Sturgis, he rode up on the sidewalk into Bulletproof Perry's saloon, right up to the bar, and says he, throwing one leg over the horse and sitting sideways, with the remnant of the hat perched on old Sturgis's ear, "Well, boys, I guess the drinks are on Captain this time. Did you get this mud-headed cayuse from a plat-bottomed sheep herder?" It turned out later that he weren't no Tenderfoot at all, but went for the performance over a bet he had made with Buffalo Bill that he could fool Captain North, and he did it effectually. He was the Wyoming Kid, one of the best all-round cattlemen in that territory and a bronco buster whose fame was universal in all the West. Needless to say, we all enjoyed the joke, and particularly the captain. This story came from the great state of Utah, being reported in the Salt Lake City Herald of October 7th, 1900. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.